Ignore that. I spilled some water. So I was listening to two, modern day astrologers wax poetic about a number of things. Some of it holds water, if I'm not mistaken, and some of the other stuff clearly doesn't. Case in point, one of them has a publishing company, and they openly stated such and such isn't on the planet anymore. It's terrifying what a disservice it is. The fact that people don't look into things, but they rattle shit like that off because they were spoon fed it early on in life, and they didn't think. It's just terrifying. The point to this video, hopefully this will actually be a quick video. I struggle with it clearly. Something else that came up, and this is relevant in terms of Google. They were talking about an index, and they were talking about people's knowledge base in terms of astrology. Now, apply what I'm about to say to any subjects you could possibly fucking think of, especially when someone turns you on to something, turns you on to somebody's research. And then you start following up on all that jazz, and you familiarize yourself with it. And then if you're really paying attention, there's probably a bunch of holes in it because we're human, and most people believe in planets and stupid shit like that, and they repeat it. No, really. I mean, the paradigms are rabbit holes. They're propaganda. They're in place to mislead you and I. But back to point. So one of the things they said is, in terms of this index, but I want you to apply it to Google in particular. They said if you don't know about, fill in the blank, then you're not going to be able to find it because you wouldn't know to look for it. Now, with Google no longer being a search engine, Google won't bring up obscure shit in most cases. Google's going to show you superficial slop. I'm talking about cars, tennis shoes. They're going to try to sell you something because somebody paid for an ad, and our masters are quite literally trying to steal any light in you and do away with any possible abstract thought notions. That was a poor way to put it, but they're dumbing people down. And it's rarer and rarer when you go looking for something, and most people default to Google. It's what's prepackaged with, factory bundles and blah, blah, blah. It's what people think of. I mean, it's a fucking verb now. You Google it. That should terrify you. The other reason I mention this is they were talking about some of this, and I've been thinking about this, where our masters are going and some of the digital shit that I've been cursing and complaining about long term in terms of digital currency and otherwise. I mean, it's a blight. It's a blight. And one of the things that they also mentioned in this jazz is what's been around all this time, what still functions in terms of what people call media these days and what people call content these days. What's how should I put it? What's a tool available to you that hasn't really changed? That hasn't changed for the most part. The answer is books. But where our masters are going in terms of the goal is control is quite literally, Orwellian state. It's more than that. It's a dystopian shit show. And soon enough, books also will be on the chopping block. Because if it's digital, they can alter it. If it's digital, they can take it away from you. If it's digital, they can do what they're doing with Google right now. And that should fucking terrify you. I mean, it's like Fahrenheit, 451? In many ways. In many ways. Or V for Vendetta and all those other dystopian future, fill in the blanks. A Boy and His Dog. God, that movie's fucking great, even though Don Johnson can't act to save his life. Yeah. I want you to think about these things. I want this shit to terrify you, and it should put a fire under people's asses to do the right thing and try to figure out what does reflect reality in stark contrast to what people are repeating, what they're rattling off. Because if you go out the door, people are just going to lie to each other, and they don't realize it. They don't realize it. They're just rattling off what our masters sold them. And they bought into it because they refuse to think for themselves. They'll argue with you about that, but They're just rattling off nonsense, fallacy, one fallacy after another. I guarantee it. If you didn't understand what I was getting at with Google, anytime you search for something, the top of the slush pile is a slush pile. It's superficial shit. And this is why there is a lag. When you scroll down, it fights back now. It's a deterrent. You have to click see more anyway. Because these fucking bastards got together and they put this out in the public. They openly told us that they were going to reduce the amount of results. Why would you do that? And then in the age of information, why in the fuck would you do that? Unless you're trying to dumb people down and hide things. You're trying to subjugate the people. Yeah. I've also mentioned this many times because it doesn't fucking come up on the goddamn internet. Ironically, people don't have a problem with this apparently, because most people aren't paying attention to the patterns and how we're being manipulated. So when you scroll down and you're searching for something that matters. In other words, if you did have a name to look up, it's probably not going to be at the top of the stack in Google. And or if it has been rebranded as a tennis shoe or a car, you're going to see that first. And you're going to have to get all that shit out of the way, and you're going to have to do a lot of scrolling. And most people don't have attention spans. So if this activity is longer than a minute, not unlike this video, most people are going to fucking tune out. Now, another way this cuts, it cuts another way. Since attention spans have been squashed like a goddamn bug, as you're scrolling through all this shit, you're probably going to be distracted. We also have how many forms of distraction these days in terms of digital shit. So something else is going to fucking make a noise, or some stupid shit's going to go off. Somebody else's phone's going to make a noise, and you're probably going to get distracted. And if you do that and you step away from this, Google is going to do you the courtesy of taking you back to the top of the fucking slush pile. And you see the same thing with YouTube and most of the social engineering horse shit. Because our masters are moderating these things. Our masters gave us these forms of communication to echo their propaganda. And they are fucking laughing at us. Again, why doesn't this shit come up? It would if you and I were surrounded by well-meaning people capable of abstract thought, thinking for themselves. But as always, what the fuck do I know? Thanks for hanging out, Internet.